Okay, so that was literally the dumbest thing ever. That like what just happened right there. I literally accidentally clicked the stop stream button it purely on accident, and I don't know how I was so stupid. I'm just gonna. This is this is the dumbest day of streaming. Like everybody, I'm not gonna have any viewers. People like I think this is the fourth time I've started this stream, so everyone's just gonna be like, okay, screw this guy. I'm gonna watch something else. And the fact that I even had viewers on my other streams is like amazing. You guys are cool, and I appreciate it. But ultimately, um, if people are gone, it's my own fault. And so yeah, I literally stopped the broadcast on accident. But I really wanted to talk about this Bell Hooks book because it is the worst book that I have ever read ever. It's literally the worst book that exists. And so the thing that I want to say about so I'm going to screen share the image of what this book looks like because um, it's pretty funny. So here's the thing. This is the book. The will to change. Oh, did Cats leave? Is he still here? Oh, okay. He muted himself. Okay. So
If you prefer my background noise, that's better.
yeah. Mute yourself when you're not talking. That would be helpful if you can. Because okay. So the will to change, men, masculinity, and love. And I'm actually going to talk about it this time. I'm just going to go on at length about it. I have been wanting to make a video, and maybe I will actually make a video about, just what is wrong with this book in general. But this woman is horrible. Like, I've literally never read a worse book than this. It is so god awful. And um the thing about bell hooks, so Sargon made a video about her, and it was based off of her book Feminism is for Everybody. And I believe Feminism is for Everybody is kind of a basically like a evangelical pamphlet. Like if somebody was trying to get you to sign up for the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, and they dropped off some, information into your mailbox, it would be the book Feminism is for Everybody.
It's the
And
book Vaginas Infallialis.
I don't fucking know what that means. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's just fake Latin about saying the vagina is good.
I guess something like that. Something. But like okay, so like I think that book Feminism is for Everybody probably, and I haven't read the book, probably it had its target audience being towards men and other people who had a resistance to feminism, basically being like, here, a spoonful of sugar makes the feminism go down, and that book was the spoonful of sugar. Well, this book, The Will to Change, it actually seems to be the target audience seems to be women and feminists and also male feminists. So it's not really doing a whole lot of anything besides she's trying to convince feminists that they need to convince men to be feminists. So the book, like this is basic this book, and it was written in 2004. And people need to keep in mind that like fourth wave feminism came about, it's officially said to have started in 2008, but we didn't really notice it until 2012. um this book would have been one of the blueprints of fourth wave feminism, because this book came out in 2004. So this was like one of the theory texts that inspired a movement that actually came 4 years later.
It
And
was the spore that created the moldy bread of modern day feminism.
yeah. We can hear you better now, and you sound very strange. But cool. So yeah. This was kind of like the spore. And here's the thing. Bell Hooks was very well respected in the early 2000s amongst the far leftist academic circles. I remember people reading bell hooks at my university. I went to a very far leftist university, and there were all sorts of wacky feminists and stuff. I didn't like them. I if one of them would say, "Have you ever read bell hooks?" I would be like, "Nope." And since you like it, I'm gonna purposefully avoid it. Like that was kind of how I was. But I had this feeling that she was maybe going to be a good author because I had read people like Alex Walker, who wrote The Color Purple. The Color Purple itself isn't a good book. It's not. It's just it's an interesting story, but he wrote it in the style of I mean, Alex Walker is actually really an interesting author. What the thing to keep in mind about Alex Walker is that she did a number of different types of writing, and so like you read a book of short stories by Alex Walker, and they're actually really interesting, and then you read The Color Purple, and it's written as if it is journal entries from a black woman in during segregation, like post slavery, but hardcore segregation. And so it's written as if it's a woman who's barely literate writing. So it's actually really exhausting to read it because it's like, oh, this woman's barely literate. But I can see why that would be kind of and it would take skill as an author to write something in that style and vernacular.
Only if it was good.
Yeah, well, it's not. No, it is a good story. It's just I don't like fucking. I didn't actually like reading it. It's
Yeah,
like
just like I think the what is it, The Grapes of Wrath? It's a good book, and I hated it.
yeah. So yeah. Oh, The Grapes of Wrath is fucking boring. I tried to read that. So I have to remember not to swear because it's my main channel. So Alice Walker I liked. Toni Morrison, who wrote the book Beloved that Oprah made into a feature-length film. I read Toni Morrison and I liked her too. So these are both like black female authors that are very revered by intersectional feminists, but they weren't intersectional feminists themselves so much. Alice Walker, I mean, I'm sure they probably defined as feminists in the way that like literally every woman in the 90s defined as a feminist, pretty much. If you were to ask them, like nobody was critical of feminism in the 1990s. Every woman except for like hardcore Republicans thought that they were a feminist. Nobody was starting to realize that maybe this stuff was a problem in the 1990s. It was just assumed that it was good.
And it's like saying you were against racism. Like, it's like, of course, before racism became everything.
Yeah, and before being an anti-racist became a racist act of its own. So, like, or being a quote-unquote anti-racist. So, I had read Toni Morrison. I had read Alice Walker. Liked both of them. And so I would tell people, and kids in my college were pretty, they were pretty racist and sexist in that leftist kind of way. But we didn't really have a word for it. We didn't call them SJWs. We called them PC people, and it was always very transparent. Like it was like these white girls with glasses who were really shy and timid, and they would ask you like, "Oh, well, have you read the work of black female authors?" And it was like that's such a loaded question coming from you. Like you're obviously asking that question because you have some like deep-seated racial insecurity yourself, little Miss White girl from, the Midwest or whatever, and you're trying
But you don't actually care about the answer.
Well, it's not. No, I wouldn't even necessarily say it was that. It's more like if I said yes, what would that actually prove? I think it's actually much more important that I actually grew up in going to school in a black neighborhood and have always had several black friends and still have black friends at our college. And by the way, the black friends that I have at our college literally don't like you. Like literally you as an individual, Ella or whatever your name is, like um what's a good like white girl's name? I don't want to say,
Ashley.
yeah, Ashley. Look, Ashley, my friend,
Jameer.
Janisa does not like you. We've talked about you. We've talked about how she thinks that you're uptight and that you try and talk about race and racism, but you don't know what you're talking about, and she finds it really annoying. Okay, so don't ask me if I have read the work of black female authors. Like if I were to say yes, then you're going to respect me more because you are the last person that should be judging me, and your entire understanding of the quote unquote black experience is based on reading these books. And then it turned out that yes, I had read Toni Morrison, I had read Alice Walker, and then I also read Audre Lorde. Audre Lorde is a feminist, is an intersectional feminist, and made her work around intersectional feminism. Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks are the two, matron saints of intersectional feminism. But the thing is that Audre Lorde was more into storytelling, and Bell Hooks was more into theory. So I read the Audre Lorde book called Zombie. I'll show you guys the cover. It was given to us by yeah, and this is literally the edition that I had with this cover. Zombie, a new spelling of my name, a biomythography, biomythography, which basically means I think that she changed her life around in her head and wrote it's like this is the story of my life, except for I'm going to change a lot of the details to make myself sound more oppressed, because why not?
It's a really nice way of saying this is a fake this is a fake biography.
Yeah, and
based on a real story that never happened.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think I read this freshman year or maybe sophomore year in college, and you have to remember this, so that's in 2000 2002, and I was only 18 19 20, and my school was very far left, and I had read Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, who were black female authors that were good, that I liked. And I was like, cool, okay, cool. And some of the people in my school told me that they thought I was really going to like this book if I liked Toni Morrison and I liked Alice Walker. But I hated this zombie book. I was like, it was a supposed nonfiction but sort of fiction, I guess, book that was basically all whining, kind of it was about how hard her life was. The thing that I really remember that was remarkable about this book is that she didn't talk ever until she was 4 years old or some crap, and there was all these horrible stories about how horribly her mother treated her, but then she always talked about how much she loved her mother at the same time, and it was I don't know, it sounds like your mother's abusive to me. And she never really had a moment where she even approached reconciling this thing where it's okay, her mom was abusive, but this is why, or whatever. It was always yeah, my mom did these horrible things, and I'm going to write chapters and chapters about how horrible my mom is, but I'm never going to even mention that, like, yeah, it was confusing for me to have to like learn to love my mother, blah blah blah. She just kind of like acted like that was normal, and that kids love their abusive mothers. And it was like, okay, no, that's not normal. You know,
And
like
what exactly are you supposed to get out of that? Because especially if it's not even an actual real story, since it's kind of an exaggeration or distortion of events, it sounds like it's a real life story in the same way that that horrible Nanette thing on Netflix, which is a comedy which isn't funny, like on purpose, where it's just like a political rally. It's like, okay, that do one or the other, but trying to say that something is another thing and just telling everyone to ignore that it clearly isn't, it just ruins both things.
yeah, yeah, I suppose I haven't seen that. So
Oh, you should.
I don't
I
have
mean,
Netflix. I don't have Netflix. You can write me a private message and
oh, sure.
write me a private message. So so this book, Zami. Okay, so the thing that I don't remember how exactly her mother was abusive. I could have sworn like the mother was actually physically abusive, and like there was passages about her mother like beating her and how she was afraid to like look at her mother the wrong way, except for she also loved her mother more than anything. And it was just like, okay, what is wrong with this woman? Like what, but
It's not Stockholm syndrome. It's Zami syndrome.
but the other thing about Audre Lorde is that she and she said that I could have sworn she said that she didn't speak until she was 4 years old, and everybody wondered why she didn't speak. And she's like, I realize now in adulthood it's not that I couldn't speak, it's that I didn't have anything to say. And it's like, no, I think that you were terrified of your abusive mother, probably. Like,
I have to tell you, like, that makes for an interesting story, but just putting on my health provider hat for a second, if a child doesn't speak until they're 4 years old, it's usually a sign of a very severe learning disorder, not anything to do with, it's not normal for children to just decide like to wait until they have something to say to talk. Like, children can't help themselves when they're at that age because they're developing. So if she was a child that didn't speak until she was 4, she'd be like autistic, basically.
Okay. Well, that could be true, and I would not put it past this woman to have something psychological going on. But I think
she's just full of shit, is what I'm saying. Like, she couldn't be the kind of person to write a book.
She might be lying, or she might have suffered severe trauma from abuse. Because her mother sounded like a very nasty woman, and so and she described it like it was just like, why aren't you because you read Bell Hooks, and Bell Hooks is like very very vehement about demonizing her father and talking about how her father was this like patriarchal abusive man. And then from the sound of the Audre Lorde book, it was like, oh, your mother was really really bad, but you don't even really, like, you tell the story about the things that she did to you, but you don't mention that it was bad. And
is it because she's a woman?
Probably. But I remember reading it and I was just like, okay, that's weird. And the other thing that I remember thinking to myself about the book, and this is rung true with literally everything that I've read by Audre Lorde, is that she is not interested in helping people relate to her and her experience. She doesn't want you to understand her. She doesn't want you to read about her experiences and somehow be able to relate it to your own life or how people are, or anything universal at all in any way. What she wants is to tell stories so that she can talk about how different she is than you. And then she gets to say, I'm so different, I'm such an outsider, I have all these intersections going on, you could never understand my life, the end. And that's sort of like seemingly why she writes. And that's what bugged me about it at the time.
That's incredibly intellectually dishonest and goes against the entire purpose of creative media.
Yeah, and even as a young adult who, like, I had nothing against feminism in my early uh university years, aside from the fact that I knew that I didn't like the feminists that I met. Like, anybody who was like actually really a feminist, I didn't like them, and I avoided them. And um and but but I did take a class that was taught by a feminist, and that's where we read this book. And I just remember thinking to myself, this book is, it's like she's trying to not communicate with the reader. And that was my critique. And I think that my teachers were like, the teacher probably said like, well, maybe you don't understand her, and maybe that's the point. And I'm like, okay, but I am a gay guy, and if I were to write a book that is going to potentially be read to straight guys about, you know, being a gay guy, I would try to, you know, find a way to communicate with them. And the teacher would be like, well, maybe she's not interested in doing that. Did you ever think about that? And it's like, okay, this is not going to go anywhere. This discussion, like, this is,
the question I would ask then is, well, what was the point of the book then?
Yeah, the point of the book is, ultimately, and I didn't realize this at the time because I wasn't politicizing it. I just got frustrated with these people, and I was like, okay, you're dumb. I don't like you. I'm gonna stick to my playwriting classes with the teachers that I like, and I'm never gonna take another like wacky feminist literature type class again. And honestly, I didn't even know what it was. Like, the class was called Experiences with Desire, and I think it had some sort of a I think it said queer in the course description, which is why I took it. But I learned not to take anything with queer in the course description after that. So like I think that even back then in the early 2000s, when third wave feminism was pittering out, like it was on the rapid decline in popularity, what I think kind of happened was that they were sowing the seeds of the you can never understand lived experiences of oppressed people, so your job is to listen and believe, shut up and listen, and then be a better ally. And so for me to say I can't relate to this book, and then for them to say, well, that's the point, white boy, basically, that was already their mission at the time. And so
Well, it's true admitting it was just a bad book.
yeah, it was a horrible book. But the thing is that, like, I didn't like deeply hate this book. I didn't like it. I just thought it was kind of not very good. You know? Like, I was like, this woman is weird. Sounds like her mother was abusive. She doesn't even admit to that. And I'm not even allowed to call her out. I'm not allowed to say that I don't like this book. Well, that's dumb.
No, it's racist, Prince.
Yeah, basically. So that was my experience with the intersectional authors. I wasn't interested in reading anymore, obviously. And they always bracketed bell hooks together with Audre Lorde. Those were like the two main ones. And then they kind of threw in good authors like Alex Walker and Toni Morrison and sort of acted like they were the same. But I don't think that Toni Morrison and Alice Walker are really intersectional. I know that Alice Walker was the person who came up with the term colorism, which in fairness, I can understand if you were a black woman who dealt with the black community and you dealt with people who were resentful of other shades of the black skin color, like people who would make fun of you for being too dark or for being too light, which happens. I can understand the urge to want a word for that. And I think that Alice Walker also might have coined the term womanism. And I think that she might have done it because she was feeling like feminism was a white woman thing, and she wanted something that was, a bit more. But it's funny that she never. I don't. I've never seen evidence that Alice Walker was an intersectional. You know, like I don't know if she ever got into the intersectional thing, because the intersectional thing is very much still white feminism. It's still the same, all the same stuff. And so then, okay, so I have been hearing that bell hooks, like people would basically say, oh, you didn't like Audre Lorde, well, you'll probably like bell hooks, The Will to Change. And the will and I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, I liked Alice Walker, I liked Toni Morrison, I didn't really like Audre Lorde, but maybe I will like bell hooks. Well, it turns out that bell hooks is 10 times as bad as Audre Lorde. Like horrible, horrible, wretched woman. Like this book is so god awful. It reads like a junior in college's diary entry. It's so bad. She's one of those feminists that mostly only quotes other feminists, which is already just like a kind of a weird thing, because feminists pretty much only quote each other, and so they're just like she's trying to talk about men, and she sometimes quotes things from men themselves, and sometimes she actually quotes kind of good quotes, but then like within a page or so she misinterprets what the guy was probably actually talking about, and then says, like she'll quote a paragraph of a man talking about the male experience, and I'm like, yeah, he's actually telling the truth. But then she goes on to talk about what he just said, and then she says he was failing to understand that his issues didn't come from that, and in fact they came from patriarchy. And then she never really explains why. She never really explains what patriarchy is. It's a book that, like, when people say that like patriarchy is to feminists what the devil is to Christianity, this book is exactly that. Like, she just vaguely refers to the patriarchy as being the problem. And it's so poorly organized, this book. Like it's and there's like 5 or 6 obvious typos. And when she refers to the feminist movement, she doesn't say the feminist movement, she says feminist movement. So she says things like, many people criticize feminist movement as, like, she always leaves the word the out of it. Like she's doing it on purpose for reasons that I have not at all figured out and can't actually contemplate. Are you still here, Katz? Oh, I don't think Katz is still with us. So but ooh. So he's muted. But okay. So the thing is about this book is that there's like these like horrible typos. She refers to patriarchy as the cause of all of men's problems, and without really explaining why and how. It's basically just about 190 pages of her talking, really her complaining about men and how awful men are, and all of the horrible things that men that, like, it's not just about the horrible things that men do to other people, which she does talk about, but she talks about the horrible things that men do to themselves. And of course, the cure would be feminism, but she doesn't actually say how. She just sort of says that it would. And it's deeply, deeply twisted. She reveals within the first 20 pages that she was dramatically physically abused by her father, and that seems to shape her entire view of men. And she also goes on to describe interactions with men that she's known, but every interaction she's with men that she's known is guys that similarly have issues with men. Like, she never knows any well-adjusted guys that don't hate men that actually are okay. It's like she's surrounded herself with male feminists her whole life, and she thinks that masculinity is this horrible thing that damages men, because that's how the men that she knows feels. And it's all anecdotes. And then misinterpretations of male scholars and quotes from other feminists. Oh, this is a funny thing. There's at least two, I think three times in the book where she refers to studies that allegedly exist that she doesn't even bother to name. Like she says something like, all right, this is I don't remember the exact wording because there's like two or three times, but she were to say something like studies indicate that by the age of 14, boys are disinterested in the things that they once loved, and it's because of patriarchy. But it's like, what study? Like what studies are you talking about? Like citation? You could at least mention, if you were to say some numbers and to say some specifics, or to say who conducted the study or when the study was conducted or something at all. But it's like you don't get to just mention a study that supposedly exists and mention what it supposedly says without even vaguely referring to what that study was. And she does that like two or three times. And the funniest one, the absolute funniest one, and this is actually hilarious. One of the studies that she refers to, she said that there was and like this is one that I would have wanted to like hunt this down and read it for myself just because it's so absurd. And I was kind of annoyed that she didn't, if this is even real, which it probably isn't. Like she probably just made this up. But she said that supposedly there's a study that she was talking about the Incredible Hulk for some reason. Because okay, this Bell Hooks is like actually insane. Like this is a deeply twisted woman that this whole book is just her. She wants to talk about men and how she's going to cure men, and then she literally just makes it up as she goes along for like 190 pages, and it's very poorly structured. It's like a diary entry. Like if you imagine hanging out with your best friend and getting drunk with her, and she's mad at her boyfriend, and she just rants about how awful men are for a few hours, and you cater to it because you're like, yeah, it's fine, you're mad at your boyfriend, you can rant about how awful men are while you're drunk. Well, imagine that being written into a book, and that would be what this book is. It's just so bad. So she just kind of says these really strange non sequiturs that kind of come from nowhere. And at some point, she started talking about the television show, The Incredible Hulk, and saying that it was a expression of toxic masculinity because it's a normally well behaved white male who when he gets angry turns into a person of color or something. And then when he becomes a person of color and he hulks out, then he is really, really mad, and it's toxic masculinity or something, right? And it's already like a really random thing to bring up in any sort of relation of trying to like dissect men. Like, okay, you're talking about the Incredible Hulk now. Okay, you're weird. And then she says, there was a study done by a psychologist about the show, and they asked young boys what they would do if they could be the Incredible Hulk. And the boys said that they would smash their mommies. Because obviously, toxic masculinity and hold on, I want to make sure you guys are like actually seeing this, right? Okay, cool, you are seeing it. So yeah, supposedly supposedly there was a psychological study done where a psychologist asked little boys what they would want to do if they became the Incredible Hulk, and they would smash their mommies, according to Bell Hooks. But she doesn't mention this study. She doesn't say who conducted it and like where we could actually read about this study. And and so like obviously she probably just made it up and it doesn't actually exist. But I'm just thinking to myself, Okay, that's really funny. I want to read that if that's true. Like, I want to find that study and read about it because that's hilarious. The idea that little boys are saying that they want to smash their mommies as the Incredible Hulk. Like, was that a feminist study? And like, did the feminists like how did if that did really happen? If that, which I don't believe it did, but if it did really happen, was did they say that was did they kind of trick the little boys into saying that? Did they kind of feed them? Did they ask them leading questions? Did they say that you would like if you became the Incredible Hulk, when would you when would you do it? They said, I don't know, when I got mad. And they'd be like, well, who makes you mad? I don't know. Sometimes kids at school. Is it only kids? I don't know. I guess my mom makes me mad sometimes. Oh, yeah. Does your mom spank you? Yeah. Oh, so would you get mad if your mom spanked you? Yeah. Would you maybe turn into the Hulk and smash your mom? I guess maybe. I mean, the Hulk can't control himself, and so that was what it was. And then Bell Hooks turned it into little boys said that they were going to smash their mommies. But of course, we can't actually read about it because she doesn't cite this study that allegedly this was said in. So this is a horrible, horrible author. Uh, and I might be making a whole video where I quote various passages from this book about just how twisted it was. But the thing is, people tried to act like Bell Hooks was like this like great progressive feminist that many people would like, and she's reasonable. No, she's not. She's a crazy radical. She's just a different strain of wacky radical feminist, and she literally quotes Andrea Dworkin. Andrea Dworkin being the anti-porn crusader who said that all rape and sexual assault was a result of pornography or something. I think that was like her shtick. And she also believed that all heterosexual sex is rape, I think. So Bell Hooks quotes that woman non-ironic, non-ironically in her book. And yet we're supposed to believe that because Bell Hooks is a black woman and she calls herself intersectional, and she claims in this book that she's trying to help men by, of course, demonizing them and saying that they harm themselves and that they need feminism. She's trying to evangelize them. Well, then she's actually a progressive feminist, and that she's a reasonable feminist. She's not a radical feminist. She wants to help men. Oh, no, she's not. She's like, uh, I would say there's an argument to be made that she's even worse than Andrea Dworkin. And, I mean, I don't know. I haven't actually read Andrea Dworkin. Andrea Dworkin is a messed up woman. But the thing is about Bell Hooks is that Bell Hooks was willing to try to inflict her insanity on to men and on to everyone. Like, she wrote the book Feminism is for Everybody, and she believed that it was her job as the self-appointed expert about men and masculinity, even though she only knows men that hate men and her abusive father and her brother who was also abused by their father. That's like her experience with men. She appointed herself the expert of men and masculinity and the expert of saving men, and everybody said, okay, cool, well, you're a black woman, have at it. We're going to publish your books. We're going to have you tour across the world. Nobody had a problem with it. People were fine about it. And then I would meet these girls in, university last decade, however many years ago that was, and or early 2000s. And these white girls would read Bell Hooks like they were fully sold on the like listen to the experiences of oppressed people thing. And they thought that everything that Bell Hooks said must be true because intersections, oppression, black women. And I had my friends at my university were I was I didn't really like a whole bunch of the kids at my specific university, but a number of the kids that were my actual friends were the few racial minorities that went there. And I think that the racial minorities liked me in particular. Like I can think of three black friends offhand that I was like pretty good friends with. One was mixed, but the other two were, you know, just dark black, and they really liked me a lot. And I'm pretty sure that they gravitated towards me because I didn't have that attitude of like, I'm going to believe everything a black author tells me, and I'm going to act like this black author speaks for all black people. I was like, no, I think that black people can speak for themselves. Like, I think that my peers who are black can speak for themselves. And, you know, I talked to my friend that I still talk to out of those three, the one who's mixed, and she came from a really rough neighborhood in Brooklyn, and she hated the like the white feminist girls at our school. You know, the type of girls who would have read Bell Hooks and been like, "Oh, Bell Hooks is so great. I understand your experience. I've read Bell Hooks." My friend would have been like, "No, you don't. And for the record, I don't even like Bell Hooks. So what are you talking about? I'm from a rough neighborhood in Brooklyn. I'm not trying to talk about patriarchy oppressing me. I didn't have an abusive father that beat me with a board when I was 4. That's not what I talk about. I talk about my life. Like, you don't have a window into my experience because you read some Bell Hooks. What are you talking about?" You know, like that's what my friends in university would have probably said, basically. I plan to have that girl on my show sometime because she's really funny. She's a very funny girl. She was in playwriting with me. Like I think actually maybe concentrated in playwriting, and she is very un PC and loud, and like if you think I you know, talk a lot and animated in the way that I talk, like she's like times 10, and she's great. um so yeah, you know, the fact that this person is trying to, you know, represent the female experience or the black experience, and people are fine with it's just so. Oh, and she's trying to talk about men too, like somehow she decided that she gets to like talk about men, and like because she represents the female experience and the black experience, then she also gets to talk about men, because feminists have this attitude that they understand men better than men understand themselves, because according to feminists, men don't act like how men want to act. Like, they legitimately believe that patriarchy is that there's this thing out there called patriarchy, and it's a sickness, and it's an abomination of nature, and it tricks men into acting differently than they would actually normally act. So basically, the feminist worldview uh, subtracts, I would say, the two biggest parts of the feminist worldview that are completely incomplete. Like they just don't understand these two things about men. One is obviously testosterone. They don't understand the male sex drive, and they are not interested in actually understanding it. They think that men are lying when they say that men get horny and that they want to get their rocks off. Like, they don't understand, because they'll just say, well, women get horny too, but women don't do that. It's like, well, maybe that's because men get horny in a different way. And they're like, no, it's patriarchy. It's patriarchy. And it's like, no, I think that men get horny in a different way. You know, and the best way to describe the way that men get horny is it's kind of like men um have to ejaculate, have to have orgasms once every, you know, when you're in your early 20s, you probably need to masturbate every day or two, or you're gonna, you know, just constantly be popping boners, and you need to do that kind of like you have to urinate. But with women, it's not quite the same, you know. And I accept, I don't know what it's like with women, but I accept that it's different. But men have to, or they go crazy. And the thing is about feminists is that they refuse to accept that, and they like to think that male sex drive and any act of sexual any sexual urges coming from men pretty much is a sign of the patriarchy inspiring men to do these bad things. And I think that that's because they decided that I think it really has to do with the fact that the people who are motivated to be feminists and who are motivated to kind of like take over the world with this like matriarchal female centric version of running things, they're people who have been largely abused by men, and sexually abused, raped, or in some way or another, and they're thinking in their head that they want to end it so that it never happens again, as if that's possible. And they like Camille Paglia and Christine Hoff Sommers say, they believe that they could micromanage the world and get rid of all rapists, and because they're just unwilling to accept biological reality that testosterone drives men to do that. And then the other thing that they leave out of the picture is simple utilitarianism in terms of how like the importance that men serve in like the importance that competition serves, like how competing over various different things is what leads to a productive civilization. Competing over who is the strongest and smartest, the best leader and everything. Well, that person gets to lead the project of building this building, or going and taking the, even before we had civilizations, if a man was really, really strong and really, really smart, and his people, his tribe, his little tribe of 300 people, they were in an area where there wasn't enough food. Like maybe there was food, but then the game moved away and blah, blah, blah. Well, he would go on an expedition and find a new valley that they could all live in. But like, why would they trust that one man ahead of another man? Well, it's because he's the smartest and the strongest. He competed in all these different ways. And that man is going to find the best valley to live in, and everyone's going to go there with him. And then all the women get to, I don't know, eat oranges and nuts and berries and deer that the men catch. And well, they there's a utilitarianism around being a competitive male, obviously. And feminists just take all of that for granted, act like testosterone doesn't exist, and they think that everything would be better if they told men what to do. And the reason why is because, well, this woman was abused by her father when she was really little, which she admits within the first 20 pages. And people are fine with it because they're racist, because she was black. And they're like, oh, well, we can't argue with a black woman. We're intersectional. And I'm sorry. No, sorry, not sorry. That is messed. That is so messed up. It's the same type of messed up that allowed Obama to be a horrible, horrible president. I really, really don't mind. I mean, I don't want to say because I haven't studied. I don't know quite enough to say that he's like the worst president in modern American history. I probably said so before, but I might have been being hyperbolic. I don't want to definitively say that, but he was definitely one of the worst. And people were fine with him. Like he got away with literally murder because he was black. And we got to really stop doing that. Like the positive racism that people exhibit, like the racism of favoring people because of their minority status and allowing them to do destructive, harmful things. That's such a pressing problem. And because it enables like some of the worst behavior that that I can imagine. And this book is a prime example. And people really need to take bell hooks to task and to just utterly purge her. Like when people look at gender studies classes and they say this stuff is all nonsense, um, people will say, "Oh, well, that's just the radicals." Is blah blah blah. No, it's bell hooks. Bell hooks is nonsense. She's like one of the worst of the worst. She's one of the worst of them all. You don't got to go any further than their favorite feminist theory author. Like when people talk about feminism and they talk about main, like people, leftists and feminists have this habit of trying to excuse all of feminism by excusing everything bad about it as being only part of the radicals. Like you mention all of the different things that feminists say. Like if you tell a gay male feminist that feminists are homophobic and that they're lying and saying that gay men constantly grope women, right? Because every gay guy knows that that's not true. Like every gay guy knows that you don't actually see gay guys like regularly groping women, and that in fact the exact opposite is true, that women grope men. But at gay bars. But you could tell a gay guy that, and his reaction is going to be, "Oh, well, no, that's not a common thing. They don't actually say. I've never heard that," which is probably untrue. He's probably heard it, but he'll say, It's only the radicals that say things like that." And then you could show him, 5, 6, 7, 8 different blogs that all say that, and it's like, it's in Dot Mike, it's in a well published Australian paper. It's on Jezebel. It's in lots of places. There's all sorts of places talking about gay men groping women like it's this thing. At the Huffington Post, and then that guy still acts like it doesn't count. And it's like, okay, if all of this stuff doesn't count, because I guess according to you, even though there's so many of it and so many non-radical, like it's not where like we're talking about a WordPress blog, we're talking about, the Sydney Observer, I think is the Australian paper which published the article called "Dear Gay Men, Stop Sexually Assaulting Us." That's been around since, I think, like for maybe 1989, since last century. Like it's been around for a long time, and it's well publicized. It's not a fringy radical thing. Regardless, even if people can shrug off all of the blogs and the papers and everything as quote unquote radicals, I don't think that they can shrug off bell hooks as radicals. And if they actually read her, she's wretched. Like she's like there's typos. She's referring to studies that for all we know just don't exist. She's saying just demonstrably untrue things about men, which is if I make my video about her, I'll get into just sort of debunking some of the, just because it's hard to even remember all of the different untrue things she says about men, because it's pretty much all of it is just untrue. Like she's just not understanding men at all. And the point I'm trying to make with this live stream, and then I'm going to go to the chat and like ask a few or answer a few questions maybe, is that you don't have to go any further than their biggest icon to show how heinous feminism is. Like you don't have to cherry pick at all. Just go right to the source. Just go right to bell hooks. Okay. So let's hi people. People are actually watching. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna go take a look at what you guys are saying to me in the chat. So I'm looking at your chat things now. A myopic view of history leads them to construct a threat narrative in which the target group is responsible for all the world's misfortunes and must abdicate any power it has. I'm not sure exactly who you're referring to. Feminists in the EU are actively trying to make it illegal for gay men to have kids. Wait, really? I didn't know that. could you link me to a article? Could you tweet that at me or send it to my email? Here, my email. I'm gonna write my email in the um tell me about the feminists trying to abolish gay male adopt. Because, man, like I've been trying to warn gay men about feminists for a while. It's like that's why I started my channel was, just to be like, oh God, they are coming for us. Like they are not just coming for straight men. They are coming for us, and they don't have any like I think straight men are pose a bigger threat to feminists because they're more powerful. There's more of them. Um, but um, if gay men don't put up a fight against feminists, like we're going to be done for, or we're going to have to, and when I say we, I mean gay men as a social demographic is maybe likely going to have to sort of move over to the Republican Party because it would be in the best interest of the greater community to make allegiances with the Republican Party to defend themselves against the active homophobia coming from the left. Because the Republicans are trying to, sort of extend the olive branch to gay men and to make amends and to form some sort of bond. And I think that I don't know if I believe that like I haven't become a Republican. I haven't seen any great I've always felt that the Republican Party is a party that likes to make some sort of I don't want to say empty promises because they sort of do deliver what they said that they were going to do. Like I think that they do tend to usually cut taxes and they sort of do tend to give freedoms and stuff like that. But I don't really see them having much long-term investment after those things. It's kind of like, okay, well, we signed a contract. You voted for me because of this, and I said I was going to do this. Contract's over. I don't care about you. See you later. And then some of the politicians get rich, and the people that they work with get rich at the end. And they're kind of that's sort of what seems to be the pattern of the Republicans. The Democrats are just diabolical. Like they're completely manipulative, and they do all these like weird, treacherous, evil things. So I mean, never. I'm hashtag walk away. But God, okay. So I'd really like to see that article. Um, yes, yeah. Feminists hate all men. Yes, they certainly do hate all men, but they don't. But they really, really hate gay men. They hate gay men extra because I've actually made a video called "Why the Left Hates Gay Men Even More Than Straight Men," and it's basically about feminists because all leftists are feminists at the moment. Like if you're actually a leftist, you're a feminist, even if you don't know it. Like you can't be a leftist without being a gynocentric feminist filled to the brim with feminist dogma. It's impossible for the most part, unless you are one of the leftist reformer types that's actively trying to um, say that hey, why don't we um, search for some social programs and some government regulation without feminism and actively say so, then you're probably a feminist and maybe you don't realize it. Um, uh, I found it very interesting. Heather Heyer said a great. She's Brett Weinstein's wife, and she was on the Rubin Report. And honestly, I really like Brett Weinstein. Weinstein. I don't remember how you say it. Um, I really like him pretty well, but I was actually more captivated by her. Like she's really, really smart. Like people should not think of her as just some smart guy's wife that's also kind of smart. Like she very well might be smarter than him. And so people should watch the Rubin Report with her on it. Um, she had a really good, interesting talk about why she's not a libertarian. And I don't want to quote her verbatim and try to remember exactly what she said. I think that people should go watch it for themselves because she says it better than I do. But she was talking about it from an evolutionary biology standpoint and the ways in which corporations like Monsanto will, mess with our food and our environment, and they're not going to regulate themselves, and that's why she's not a libertarian. Like there is necessary regulation sometimes, and like you spend a long enough time on this earth, and you see corporations doing these things that, like we see Google and Facebook just like being these obscene monopolies and just being so completely absurd with how they're doing things, and at first all the YouTubers are like, well, the government shouldn't be involved. I mean, that's horrible. The government should never be involved. And now everybody's just saying like, okay, where is the Internet Bill of Rights? Can we please have it? You know? And I want the government Bill of Rights. I'm sorry. I don't, I can't see the actual problem with this notion that, like the government could say, hey, people are allowed to have free speech, no child porn, no kiddie porn, no threats of violence, no revealing of people's personal information. Other than that, have at it. I think that's sort of should be how it works. And what's the problem with that? Like, that that's just anyhow. So there is actually a case of feminists trying to ban gay men having kids that made me stop calling myself a feminist. I got red pilled specifically because I am gay. Yeah, I hope more people are starting to feel that way. I really, really do. Gay men could be such a powerful, um, oh God, I hate sounding like this, but like army against feminism, because gay men have, like, we immediately prove that they're just full of crap about everything because like we are the immediate obvious exception to patriarchy theory. We're like, no, we don't live and breathe all day every day to oppress women, and we don't need feminism to stop oppressing women like you say that we do, because we're gay guys, like we don't care. And then they say, but you do oppress women. You grab our boobies all the time. And we're like, no, we don't. Except for a lot of guys are unwilling to say, no, we don't. Well, I'm not. And actually wrote a video about that today. But hey, you know what? Ultimately, I'm happy with the stream. I think it's a good stream. And I think it's going to be today's video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for all the super chats I didn't get. And I'll talk to you later. And I guess I'll be streaming again. I'm amazed that this actually happened. See ya.